Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video series that we've started. We've decided in the lead up to IAPSS's 25th birthday in 2023, we're going to be doing some alumni interviews of IAPSS volunteers and representatives who served the organization in previous years. And so we have a very special guest with us today. So I'd like to introduce Alexandros Samaras, the IAPSS president from the 2007 to 2008 mandate. And I'm also here with Oleksii Zahreba, the IAPSS Secretary General. So Alexandros, how are you doing today?
Nice to meet you. I'm doing good. Thanks for this interview.
Well, that's great to hear. So maybe to start off, I guess, would you be able to give us a bit of an overview of your involvements in IAPSS? We know you were the president, but I guess maybe were there any, maybe we could even start from how you first got involved in IAPSS.
I know that the IAPSS statute went under changes. Back then it was called chairman, not president. And this is one of the changes. And the reason is we considered it that the head of the organization is there to assist everybody and to make things work in a way that would unite everybody. Not that the word president changes that, but that's the focus we gave back then. There were some statutory changes later. I believe the reason is because IAPSS then changed countries. It was built under different legislations, so that name had to change. So back then, I studied political science in Thessaloniki in Greece, and I was very much involved in Thessaloniki in all kinds of political debates. And I wanted to take that to a step further and to take it to an international level. Back then, Greece was not involved in IAPSS. We didn't know of the existence of IAPSS. IAPSS was a 10-year-old organization. And I came in contact with the head office that back then was in Slovenia. I was very excited by the idea that I could meet other students of political science, and then I could travel, meet them in person, and then speak about topics that would be of common interest. That's the moment when also myself and some other fellow students of mine took the initiative to organize students on the local level in Thessaloniki and become more actively involved in IAPSS. I had a couple of opportunities. Back then, there was an event that was called a NATO simulation of IAPSS with NATO that happened alongside the informal defense ministerial meeting of NATO in Portorož in Slovenia. So that was my first encounter with IAPSS. It was co-organized with IAPSS and another German organization. And I remember the Secretary General of NATO, Jaap de Hoop Scheffer, paid a visit and we met him in person, and that was so exciting. And that was how I started. And that was so exciting back then. Then I paid another trip in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, where I met the local team. And we got to know each other and we had some team building activities. And that's how I started getting more and more involved. And then I went to the annual gala in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. It was very fun. And I didn't plan to be a candidate for a chairperson, but I was in the end, and I was elected. And back then, our permanent seat was in Ljubljana, and I had to move to Ljubljana. And I moved there for 1 year, where I served the head office of IAPSS. The next year, if I'm not mistaken, we started with a debate about whether the seat should stay in Slovenia or whether it should move to the Netherlands. After I left, the seat was moved to the Netherlands in Amsterdam. It was not in Amsterdam, it was another city, but I'm not aware of because I was not that active anymore. I was an alumnus at that moment. And that's how everything wraps up my first experience with IAPSS.
Okay, well that sounds amazing, and I imagine you were there for the 10th anniversary celebrations of IAPSS as well, so that must have been exciting. We do have some pictures from that time. Maybe we can show you some afterwards, but it definitely sounds like it was a fun event. So I guess as chairman of IAPSS, as I know the terms are very similar. I think in French, for instance, like president sort of translates to chairman, I believe. But yeah, could you maybe tell us a little bit about your experience as the head of IAPSS and maybe talk about some of the highlights, some things that you're proud of, or just give us maybe just an overview of what happened during at that point in IAPSS's history?
There are some challenges, and the challenges, I believe, continue to exist. It always starts with the fact that it's very hard to get funding because it's political science, it's about ideas, it's about developing soft skills. It's not about getting involved with industries that have a lot of money. And in politics, if we want to show a good face, we need to show that it's not about the money, it's about the ideas. And that was a big challenge back then. We mainly relied on funds from the European Union, and that had to be combined with activities. We had some money for administrative purposes, but we always had to combine it with activities so that we would have some grants. And that's how it worked. One thing that maybe I'm proud of during my time in office in IAPSS is that I established official partnership between IAPSS and UNESCO. That's the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. We established an official relationship in the departments of higher education and human rights. And that also helped us get some funding for a couple of our events and broadened our connections and our network. In political science, we have some difficulties as regards funding, and funding is important to unite students. You said that you're trying to move the whole idea into a hybrid environment. Having the experience that I have from the past, I believe this is a big challenge, and I wish you good luck with this. And the reason is because I believe that students really want to have this face-to-face connection. They want to feel the connection with other students and really understand each other's cultures and go deeper. For example, the very first person I met in IAPSS was 17 years ago. That was at the team building event that I went to in Porto. I'm sorry. That was a team building event in Ljubljana. And there was another IAPSS student from Denmark. And right now I live in the United States. I live in Philadelphia. And a couple of months ago, I was in New York and I saw one of the students who wrote that he was in New York. And then I texted him and I met him after 17 years. And that was so exciting. We shared some moments of the past 17 years ago, and I was able to meet with him 17 years later in New York City. This is a very exciting part. This is why I loved so much about getting in contact with other students from different countries. However, the big challenge remains. What happens with the funding, and how can we unite the students if funding doesn't exist? Because it's really unfair to ask students to pay out of their own pocket. We cannot offer events based on this, let's call it discrimination, because even though we don't have the intention for discrimination, because some of them have the means to pay, some don't, but everybody needs to have an equal opportunity in meeting each other. And I would always compare IAPSS with other student organizations, such as the IFMSA, which is the organization for medical students. They have a lot of funding because they are in the medical industry. IAPSS doesn't. And that was a challenge. It remains a challenge. However, IAPSS is very strong into sharing ideas with the world and into cultivating soft skills and making a better world. That was my experience. And that's how I see this connecting right now. Being in a hybrid environment, in my opinion, maybe I'm one of the older generations, is not a very easy thing. IAPSS needs to have some funding, and to have some funding, it needs to be involved in the projects. And this is the difficult part. And however, at the same time, it always remains an opportunity for students to learn about academic issues, debate on them, come in contact, and then give a more comprehensive approach to the whole study experience in political science.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your insights, and especially the story when you met your friend from 17 years ago. This is part of the part of like the IAPSS experience is a network you create ultimately with students from around the world, and the international part of IAPSS, meeting people. It's definitely like integral part of the organization, and that's what we hope to revive after the COVID-19 pandemic. My question is, during your time, in Slovenia, and during your time at IAPSS, and as you work there and you continue to progress in your career later, how do you think, looking back and reflecting on it, how did IAPSS help you in your professional development? How did it help you to, what skills did you develop, and how did it help you to advance your career?
This is a very difficult topic, and I'll try to be as accurate as possible. Every political science student faces one big challenge. The big challenge is that they have good soft skills, which are very important in politics. They're very important in companies, in the private sector. They're very important everywhere. However, they might not have the first hard skills to help them enter the workforce. So a lot of opportunities are getting lost because, on paper at least, students of political science don't have the hard skills. And that's my journey where I went through, and it's not only myself, a lot of other students went through the same journey. Even though we had very strong degrees in political science, it was very hard to get a job, very hard. Other students who studied economics, they studied engineering, it was so easy for them to get an entry position in the workforce. And maybe this is an unfair disadvantage, or maybe this is an opportunity. What happened in my case, I studied political science in Greece, then I did a very good master's degree in Bruges in Belgium. That was a master's in European politics, and most of the alumni works in the European institutions. I worked for a certain period of time in the European Commission. I worked at NATO. However, I never had a permanent position. Maybe I'm very thankful to that, because that helped me expand more in life and make things even better. So in the end, to enter the workforce, I had to do an MBA program, because the MBA would combine my political science experience and would connect it with hard skills in the private sector. I believe that someone who is very good in business and has a political background, they have all the leadership skills to lead an organization and steer an organization, no matter if it's a political organization or private company. They really have strong skills, but still there is this unfair disadvantage. It's very hard for a student of political science to pass the very first threshold and get an entry job. I made it in the end. I'm very thankful for that. The result is that once you make it, then you grow very fast in a company. It gets recognized very fast because the soft skills are very good. The leadership skills are very good. And then a student who finally gets a career can grow very fast. So this is my experience. If I believe that something should change, is that students should take it a little bit beyond the ideas to something more practical. Students should show to the world that leadership skills are important in the decision-making of the companies. It's very important how we develop a product and how we launch it, because those students who have the hard skills and just the hard skills, it's not enough to make a company or a product very successful. Students of political science have this, and the combination is needed. I believe this is going to remain a challenge currently, but I know that in the end, after someone goes through this turmoil, they're going to become stronger, they're going to come out stronger, and they're going to have better careers and be more successful. It's a difficult journey. In the end, it is worth it, and the fruits will come later, I believe. Not in the very beginning, though.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It definitely gives, I guess, a bit of a realistic lens, but also some hope to those of us currently in political science who might be looking for jobs as who are graduating soon. So, but I guess we're especially grateful for your efforts to establish partnerships with UNESCO and other UN bodies. IAPSS still maintains the UNESCO partnership. We were participating in an event they had last year, and also at a conference they had in 2019, where we were able to put forward a resolution in their conference, like concluding documents of their recommendations to recognize the importance of student governments, student associations like IAPSS. So I guess that we're definitely thankful that you started that and you opened that door so we could have that advocacy opportunity. But I guess what your answer sort of touched on our next question here, but in terms of advice that you would give current and maybe future political science students who might be watching this, whether it's for their career, but also maybe in their current education journey, or if there's any message you would like to give to them just about politics in general, perhaps, the floor is yours.
Yes, I already touched on that, but I will say something extra on top of this. I've been through job experiences in politics, in diplomatic environments, and also in the private sector in business. What I can tell you is that in the private sector, what matters at the very end to do something with an impact is to have very strong leadership skills. It's not by coincidence that the biggest CEOs of the biggest companies, they didn't necessarily study engineering or accounting or finance. They studied philosophy. They studied political science. The CEO of Chipotle, it's a big chain of restaurants in America. The CEO, he's not the CEO anymore, but the founder, he studied philosophy. It's not by coincidence. This is because political science gives very strong skills to have a very strong impact in business and in politics, but also in business. Don't underestimate this. It's very strong because once you have the mentality, once you have the mindset, and you really go and execute, you can really make big things happen and have a big impact. If you see it this way, I believe that this is how you can make an impact in society and, you know, have a success. It might be a difficult journey because it might not follow the path of the rest of society, where they get like a simple job and then they grow out of that. But students of political science definitely have the skills to make a big impact. Don't underestimate this.
Talk about leadership and being able to steer organization and give a vision and execute it. Going back to your time at IAPSS, what was your vision for IAPSS? What was your vision for organization? What did you envision it to become? And 15 years later, do you think IAPSS accomplished what you wanted it to accomplish? And yeah, how did you? What was your vision for IAPSS during your term?
My vision was a little utopic back then. So yeah, I followed utopia, and that was, I was hoping that IAPSS would be the organization to unite all students of political science, including like everybody from across the globe, and everybody to be very active and foster and debate about political science issues. It happens to a certain extent. It is still happening. However, every culture faces a different approach and different challenges. So maybe this has not happened to the extent that I was wishing for. Also, I was hoping in a better world back then. Now I'm more pragmatic. And back then I was hoping that once students of political science can steer politics, then, we will have a better impact in this world. It still is possible. I believe it is happening, but in the sense that they're giving value to what used to happen in the past. For instance, and for example, in the past in politics, lots of things happened that were not very correct. And now we have students of political science who are advisors of politicians, and the impact is a lot better. So in this regard, it has happened. However, the utopia that I had in my mind hadn't happened. I'm more pragmatic right now. taking it to a different level, I also believe what is important is the face-to-face contact. What a face-to-face contact can give is the vibes that it can give and convey to its student. It's something that might not have happened during at least the COVID period. And that's because students were deprived of the physical contact. I believe that it's in a good path for this to happen. And why I'm saying this, because it was an organization back then that was very much centered around Europe. Now the seat moved to Canada. It means it's more international. It means that it gives an opportunity for students to connect from many more different cultures, because Europe has different cultures itself. However, it's a European culture altogether, combining a culture of America, of Canada, of Asia possibly. It means that we can grow through this interaction. I still believe that the face-to-face contact is important, and I really hope for IAPSS that in the future is going to create more opportunities for this to happen. Yes, we had the debates on academic matters and academic topics. I also believe that fun is important. It's part of the game, and it really fosters relationships, and it fosters a good network, and the network is important, both in politics and in business.
Yeah, well, we definitely hope that we'll be able to go back to in-person events. I think definitely from what we hear from students, they're very eager to jump back in there. We do get emails from associations who are interested in, sending delegations to the in-person events. But yeah, we're hoping that it'll coincide with the 25th birthday of IAPSS. So it'll be an extra special celebration. And we also have a question that is kind of interesting in the sense that it involves, so if you could go back or maybe if you could become an IAPSS volunteer again, what projects and activities would you focus on? So whether it's, say, if you could be an IAPSS volunteer in 2022, what kinds of things would you want to work on?
I would focus on activities and projects that would show to the world and to the private companies that the minds and the knowledge of political science students is essential and very important in business. The soft skills and the leadership skills are very important. A company that doesn't have it, sooner or later will fail. If we manage to pass the message that the soft skills of political science students can really help a company grow and can really help politics become better and regulations become better, then this is a big success. And it might sound abstract because I don't have such a project in mind, but I definitely know that companies would benefit from this, and the project alongside these lines would be the one to support.
We hold elections now, and many people come up with ideas, come up with like grand plans on what to do, and some succeed and some don't. It's a bit of a youthful idealism, of course, among students, among how we see the world and how we see our organization. You said you had some utopia in your mind of how you wanted to build IAPSS and what you wanted to accomplish. Looking back, what are accomplishments you're proud of? Like what is one thing that you look back and like, wow, that's amazing that we did it during my time at IAPSS?
This time I will focus on the human relationships. We developed very good human relationships. They're very important, and I'm really proud of that. And I believe that every student that has the opportunity within this network of IAPSS to connect with others, build human relationships, and keep them for life, that's of the highest value.
All right. And I guess in terms of today, so 15 years after your IAPSS experience, what are the kind of things that you're working on in your career, maybe volunteering, things like that?
Right now, I'm working in finance at a company. My leadership skills have been recognized, I have to say, and these leadership skills come from my interaction with politics, with diplomacy, and with political science. It paid off later. It took a long time, though. At the same time, I'm building a startup on education. So all these projects that I worked in the past on education, I'm starting reaping the benefits now. I cannot announce what the startup is about because I need to launch it first. But this is how it helped me, and this is where I'm heading right now.
All right. Well, that sounds amazing, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for that launch. And if there's anything that IAPSS can do to collaborate, then feel free to reach out to us. But I guess with this, unless Oleksii has any other questions, okay. So it looks like we're all ready to conclude. But is there anything else that you would like to say to political science students around the world today and tomorrow that will kind of leave us off with this important look into IAPSS's history 15 years ago?
Yes, and there is something rather practical that I'd like to share. In my experience, many of the students of political science, they wanted to follow a couple of paths. They either wanted to go into diplomacy or to become an employee of the United Nations or of the European Commission. I would say don't get that much fixated, because sometimes students get fixated to the idea that I want to do this, and there are a lot more opportunities. And just because they're not communicated, it doesn't mean that there are opportunities of lower value. Maybe these opportunities are of higher value. Keep an open mind and make your vision and make your belief a reality. Sooner or later, the ground will be ripe and you will have the opportunity to implement this.
All right. Well, with that, thank you so much for your time with us today. And yeah, so for folks who are tuning in, we'll hopefully have some other alumni interviews coming up. But yeah, thank you for being with us, whether you're listening in 2022 or sometime in the future. And we hope that yeah, we hope that this video helps inspire you to get involved in IAPSS, and we hope that this career advice that Alexandros has provided has been helpful as you navigate, as we guess we all navigate these career pathways after education. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.